Grace and Hope considered their neighbour's request carefully. Finally, Hope decided, we must be generous, and Grace agreed with her. A little gold for everybody wouldn't hurt. Envy and her niece were beside themselves with excitement. They had no intention of using the goose for just a little gold. They wanted all the riches they could get. The niece told her aunt that they should feed the goose on a special soup made from melted gold nuggets, and this would make the goose lay heavier eggs, containing more gold coins than normal. Of course, her aunt, who was only interested in making her fortune, agreed. They prepared the gold nugget soup and fed it to the goose, who thought it was very tasty and gobbled it down as quickly as possible. But the goose didn't lay heavier golden eggs. In fact, she laid perfectly ordinary eggs, with ordinary eggshells and ordinary yolks in the middle.
It's just an ordinary egg. It's not gold.
What a nasty surprise for the two gossips. They'd sold all their possessions in order to make the soup out of gold nuggets, and now they were left with nothing. All they could do was cook the eggs for their tea, and they had paid for each egg in its own weight in gold. The two spiteful women were furious with the poor bird. Green with envy, pounced on the bird and threatened to throw it out of the window if it did not lay the same eggs for them as it had for the sisters. Eggs that glittered and contained jingling golden coins.
You miserable bird! Now lay!
The goose was given one last chance, but when the aunt and her niece saw the ordinary egg that the bird produced, they exchanged a look that needed no words of explanation. Without further ado, they grabbed the poor goose and threw her out of the window. Unfortunately, the goose did not know how to fly. It could only cling. Oh! And it ended up clinging to the back of the prince, who happened to be riding home after a day's hunting.
It's a goose! Get off!
The prince was most annoyed by this, because the goose simply would not let go. But as he was a kind boy, he would not dream of using violence to rid himself of this unwanted creature. He had been hunting, it was true, but he went because it was expected of him, and he took great care not to shoot a single living creature. The prince was greatly embarrassed.
Go away!
This was not the sort of impression he wished to make on the people of the kingdom he would one day rule.
People will laugh at me.
And indeed, windows did begin to open, and the prince could hear the laughter of the people as they watched the heir to the throne ride through the town with a goose flapping and squawking on his back.
Go away, goose!
When the prince got back to the palace, he asked the advice of the best doctors in the land. They tried force, using crowbars and chisels to prise the goose off the prince's back.
Go away, goose!
Then gentleness, coaxing the goose and using suitably prepared ointments.
Try this, your highness.
Mine would be better.
Nothing would persuade the bird to leave his perch. Finally, Professor Young, the personal doctor to the king, lost his temper.
You are all wrong. The only way to remove this goose is to use vapors, which, bubbling from a flask, will act on the prince's back and release the bird.
So they tried this remedy, but not even that would work. Finally, the doctors admitted that they didn't know how to rid the prince of the bird, and instead they suggested that the prince should hold a competition with a prize for the person who could remove the goose. The prince agreed, and the competition was announced. Hope was one of the first people to arrive at the palace and present herself to the prince. She saw the goose, and as it didn't have a name, she just called out to it, "Goose," taking great care not to offend the bird by her tone of voice. Seeing her beloved mistress, the goose left the prince and threw herself into the arms of the girl. The prince was overjoyed, and he could also understand why the goose would jump into the arms of such a pretty girl. So the prince quickly declared that he was the prize for winning the competition. Hope willingly accepted his hand in marriage, but asked the prince to find a suitable husband for her sister Grace. As Grace was a beautiful girl, and she owned half a goose that laid golden eggs, she did not have to wait long for a charming count to ask for her hand in marriage. She agreed, and a double wedding took place, with the prince taking Hope as his princess, and the count taking Grace as his countess. Even the goose joined the procession, adorned like a grand lady and sitting on a velvet cushion carried by a young page. And the two gossips? Well, they were furious when they saw the good fortune of Hope and Grace. But aunt and niece, a right pair of geese, could do nothing other than grind their teeth.